anything that would make a good story about building websites, we go for. In fact, a couple of years ago, we had a crazy one where I had a hacker really mess with my life, and I even took that as an opportunity I invited the hacker onto the show anonymously to have an interview.
Do you want to impact the world and still turn a profit? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Growth Everywhere. This is the show where you'll find real conversations with real entrepreneurs. They'll share everything from their biggest struggle to the exact strategies they use on a daily basis. So if you're ready for a value-packed interview, listen on. Here's your host, Eric Sue.
Before we jump into today's interview, if you guys could leave a review and a rating and also subscribe as well, that would be a huge help to the podcast. So if you actually enjoy the content and you'd like to hear more of it, please support us by leaving us a review and subscribe to the podcast as well. Thanks so much. All right, everyone. Today we have a guest that I haven't spoken to for 5 years since my Treehouse days. His name is Chris Coyier. He is the founder of CSS-Tricks, CodePen, and the Shop Talk Show podcast.
That's it.
So there we go. So Chris, how's it going?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, Eric. Yes, it has absolutely been a long time. Yeah, we worked together for sponsorship stuff from old Team Treehouse. Glory days.
Yep. So how are things going nowadays? And I guess we can start off by, why don't you just tell us your story, first of all?
Sure. I mean, that's all coming back into my head right now just because we talked about it a little bit. My life isn't actually all that different from 5 years ago, really. So some people know me through CSS-Tricks, if you know me at all, because I've just been running that site. So it's been a decade now. It started in 2007, and it's like a web publication about all things web. So the name is really dorky, CSS-Tricks, whatever. I was a young man when I chose it, and it just is what it is. It's certainly about CSS. So, I woke up today and wrote an article about CSS and published it, or a couple of them, actually. And so that's what it is. It's just, maybe you land on it in Google search results and stuff. Maybe you're a subscriber because you just like hearing about what's new on the web, what's new in CSS and stuff. But it's not limited to that topic necessarily. The topic is building websites. And that topic for CSS-Tricks is kind of the topic for my life, really, because I also run CodePen, which you mentioned, which we can talk about, but it's kind of like a playground, if you would, for front-end development. And I have a podcast as well called Shop Talk Show, and it's all about building websites also. So all the things I do are centered around building websites, essentially.
Between or among the three things that you have going on right now, I mean, how does it look? How are these businesses doing in terms of revenue, users and things like that?
A B-? Can I do what? I'm certainly not. There's not investors knocking down my door or anything because we have crazy explosive growth. But I've never. Not that I'm not interested in that. Certainly I'm interested in success, and if I had runaway success, I'd be cheering. But I don't know that I need it. I feel comfortable and happy with where I am. So CSS-Tricks is not just me. There's a team, right? But the team is all very part-time people who help me with writing and just the running of the business and such. But the kind of the editorial and a lot of the writing and just a lot, it's wholly owned by me. And there's I'm not sure if there is a such thing as explosive growth for a one-man publication. There's certainly publication explosive growth. I think of companies like Vox Media, where I hadn't heard of them 5 years ago, and now they're just huge, But that's kind of I don't know. I wasn't shooting for that. Probably never will. CSS-Tricks is I open up my Google Analytics and look at the growth of it as a site because it's interesting to have because I put it on there on day one of the site and I've never taken it off. So I have a ton of analytics data from CSS.
Yeah, so what does that look like? Let's talk about the community for a second. I mean, when you first started, slow growth. I mean, what does it look like today in terms of monthly traffic that you're getting and number of email subscribers you have? And ballpark's fine. You don't have to be exact.
No, I mean, I can be exact about the CSS-Tricks traffic because who cares? I almost wish I could go into Google Analytics and check a checkbox to be make this public. I want other people to see it and tell me if there is interesting information you could extract from it because there's nothing I'm trying to hide about the analytics, particularly for CSS-Tricks. It's 7 million page views a month. And I know the page views isn't super interesting because it's if you really wanted to pump that up, I could break my articles across pagination or something like that. I could do tricks to get that, or it could be really bad if I decided that I would implement some functionality on the site where if you click an article, it just loads in line, right? So it never really refreshes and doesn't give me that. I don't know if page views is that interesting. I think that there's more interesting metrics to look at. I don't even know what they are exactly, but Google Analytics tracks users and time on site and stuff like that.
What do users and number of email subscribers look like?
Okay, so email subscribers is real bad. And it's only because it was only like 1 year ago we really decided to maybe even do a newsletter. It's like, I think it's like 24,000 or something right now, which is not like, I'm not saying if somebody has a newsletter that has 24,000 subscribers, they're doing badly. But like I've tracked for when you could track RSS numbers well, like because Google had FeedBurner or whatever, and it used to be somewhat accurate until that all went to garbage. That was like hundreds of thousands, So on Twitter, the CSS-Tricks has over 300,000. So it's like to have a newsletter that's like a whole order of magnitude lower than that. Isn't that great? But I don't know. We're just growing it. We're having fun with it, whatever. So we are taking the newsletter seriously now, despite it being kind of a smaller product than any of the other things that we can do.
That's okay. I mean, you're just getting started with it. And the fact that you have 7 million pages, you do some optimizations here and there.
This is a WordPress site, right? And there's, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of comments and forum posts and stuff that have been left over the 10 years of the site being active. I could just be like, let's see, you've interacted with my site and posted something on my site. I'm going to go through my database, grab every single email address in the database and put you on my email list. It'd be a little shady, possibly a little illegal, but people do that.
That's definitely illegal.
It's definitely illegal, right? But people do that stuff. I could artificially grow it a lot higher. I could be like, you can't do X and Y. Or I could have a massive banner, like you can't even read an article on the site unless you sign. I don't do anything like that. There's just a little form at the bottom. It's like, you want to get our email, you can do it. I haven't even done smart stuff like, I really like this on Twitter. You can do the like a tweet somehow that's got a card where all people got to do is like click a thing and then they're signed up for your newsletter because Twitter already knows your email. I don't even know how it works, but I like it. I haven't even investigated that yet. There's a lot of ways you can grow stuff like that we haven't even tried.
You're at 7 million page views per month right now. I mean, what does that growth rate look like? I mean, if you compare like, if you're doing like month over month kind of growth rates, what does that look like?
Month over month growth is probably really super duper low, like sub 1%.
But it's still growing.
Rarely is there ever even a month where it goes down. It's really, really, really steady, which makes me feel good because I do drastic stuff sometimes. I'm like, I'm just going to redesign the entire site this weekend. Boop, because it's just me and I can do that. And I don't have so much tied up in it that like a little bit of problem, I couldn't solve any problem that came up or anything.
What's interesting? Like you can make all these changes. It's your site at the end of the day. But when you think about it from a high level, it's like it continues to grow because of all the value that you continue to add. So what do you think sets you apart from other people? Because clearly you know how to build communities. Like you have this podcast, you have CSS-Tricks, you have CodePen. What's your secret to building a strong community? 7 million page views is huge.
I've always liked the idea that, first of all, I'm just a person. So when I write this site, it's not like I'm trying to hide myself from this site. Clearly, there's a picture of me on the site. I say I put my name on there. I'm not trying to make like this abstract. I'm not trying to make it seem like it's any bigger than it already is. I also have a tone that I've developed over the years, like kind of on purpose. I've tried to codify it a few times. I'm not sure how good of a job I've done, but it's kind of like we're authoritative, but not like, pompous about it. And we're always friendly. I use a lot of we when we write, and then we do this and we do this kind of like as we're going through the tutorial, it's kind of like we're all in this thing together. Maybe that's like the best way to put it is I try to write like I just learned this thing too, which often is the case. And I remember what it was like to not know this thing because I'm usually teaching in these articles. And I'm gonna try to convey like what it was like before that. And I think that like that tone, I mean, it's okay if people don't like it, but there's plenty of people that do like it and subscribe and listen and are part of the site because they like how it feels, and then there's also this sentiment that you get back what you put out in the world kind of thing. Like there's certainly sites that have way more of like a snarky tone to them on purpose. It might even work for their site. It's not even bad. It's just that they're a snarky kind of site. And then the community that comes with that is amplified by 10. I think like if you're a snarky site, the community around you is going to be like 10x as snarky as that, And if you're just nice and you encourage niceness and you shut down anything that isn't kind of doesn't feel healthy and right, which I do, like, for example, I don't just allow anybody to comment. I have the comment form for the last while on this site. It says, please treat this more like a letter to the editor. You can write to me, but I'm not going to publish every single thing that's written in here. If it's like a good comment that I feel like adds value to this site, I approve it, and otherwise I don't. And that means that when you're browsing around the site and reading stuff, aside from the forums, which is a little bit more of a free-for-all, it's been chosen. It's the words that you read have been approved.
Obviously, you're wearing a lot of hats right now. I'm just wondering, what does your content team, or what does your entire team for CSS-Tricks look like right now?
Well, it's a lot of me, but I have part-time writers. I have Jeff and Robin and Sarah. They kind of just do whatever they want. Like, maybe I'm not the best boss in that regard. We do keep like a Trello board full of ideas, and Mia as well, that it's like, if something appeals to you on that Trello board, go for it. Or if you've read an article recently and it resonated with you, go ahead and throw up a link to it. But don't just link to it. We always you shouldn't link to something unless you have kind of something to say about it, some kind of your own opinion there. You can summarize it in a good way. I don't really mandate what other people write necessarily. If someone comes to me and is like, I need some ideas, well, sure, I'll shoot you 10 ideas. But I almost prefer that it wasn't an assignment, that I didn't put you on a beat and you had to do it because this is your job. I'd prefer it to come this is what I'm interested in right now, so this is what I'm going to write about. And it's a slow trickle. We only publish 1 or 2 things a day.
How many articles are you putting out a month yourself?
A month? I don't know, at least 20, I'd say. And sometimes full-blown tutorials. Sometimes it's a video. Sometimes it's a snippet or an almanac entry, because those are different concepts on CSS-Tricks. For example, the almanac is just it's more like an encyclopedia of CSS. It's not as timely, whereas the blog is, by nature, things are dated, and it's kind of in chronological order by published. You read it more like a publication, whereas snippets are they're dated and it says when they're last updated, but they're just kind of filed into a particular category because it's not a full-blown tutorial. It's just like a bit of code. But
what does the average word count look like for you?
Oh God, that's a great question, because it's not like I don't have it locked up in my head, but they're definitely, they feel like medium to me. When somebody submits an article that's I don't know what's a lot, 10,000 or something, that would be you'd scroll
a lot,
yeah, that would be a lot. It'd be like a big thick chapter in a book, I feel like, right? Or maybe an entire book in some cases if it's a small one. We don't tend to do that, nor are they 2 paragraphs usually. But there are these 2 types of posts. There's a normal traditional blog post, and then there's a link post, which are by nature shorter, because we're not trying to get you to stay on our site very long. We're trying to link off to somebody else. I don't know what the perfect.
How long does a usual post take you? Maybe I can make an estimate.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. I try to get done with them right away in the morning. So if I'm going to do publishing, I'll get up and I'll spend an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'd say between 1 and 2 hours on a post, and then.
So that's, if you're quick, it can be anywhere from, efficient, anywhere from 1,500 to, I want to say 3,000 words. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, sure. Why don't I? I'll just, for fun, I'll pull up a recent one and I'll send it through.
Cool. I love looking through this stuff. The whole process, because everybody wants to get that many page views. And my take on this is I look at my friend has a gun blog too, that we work on, and he just writes really good stuff and it grows. Once you have a good product, sometimes it just blows up. And I'm looking at your stuff right now. CSS-Tricks.com, you guys rank for 481,000 keywords according to our tool, our SEO tool, Ahrefs. It's showing that, it's 1 million organic traffic, but, obviously, these, when it comes to estimates, these tools are usually wrong, but 481,000 organic keywords is huge, and your domain authority or domain rank is about 70 out of 100, which is also huge. So kudos to you.
Hey, thanks. It's been just taking care of the site for literally a decade, not letting it go to, just making sure everything's working and fast and accessible and the best I can. So I just dropped a recent tutorial, and that was a pretty short one, but it's only about 500 words. That would be a short one, but it is a full-blown tutorial. So what are you going to do?
Tell us about the business model. You have these 3 sites right now. How do you make money? What's the revenue breakdown?
Well, we've been talking about CSS-Tricks a ton, so I can start with that. Display advertising used to be big. It used to be the primary way. So you'd write articles and then you'd fill ads around them, as much as you can and as tastefully as you can, because everybody knows if you go overboard, it's just you lose people. And my goal is steady growth, not not steady loss or whatever. And there still are display ads. There's still a market for that, although it's just not like it used to be. And they're just nobody's favorite. I don't know. I still don't mind them and use them, and I'm glad that there's money to be made in them still. But almost more money comes from a pure site sponsor, and all about that because that's kind of what we did with Treehouse. It was like more of a custom partnership kind of thing where we can do more. So I actually do that with Media Temple right now, and I love it because Media Temple is actually my host for the website. But the partnership is more complex. Like we do contests together, and there's display advertising, there's sponsored posts. I write on their blog. It's a thing that we've codified out. We wrote up like, here's all these ideas, and all this together is worth X bucks, and we do that a month kind of thing. And that's been working. But so the business model of CSS-Tricks is there's some merch. That's nothing. We almost lose money on that. There's display advertising, which is okay. Sponsored posts, which is pretty good. I like those because it gives me a chance it uses the mechanism that we already have, which is content, and then we mark them clearly and stuff, and that seems to be going okay. And then the best thing you can do is to have a full site sponsor with a custom deal.
Cool. And so how much are you making on CSS-Tricks a year? Is it 500K, less than $1 million, over $1 million?
It's much less than $1 million. And in fact, like my personal take home is pretty low. It's like 100, a little over 100 maybe.
Revenues are not we just talk about it here. It's not like there's low, high. I think it's just a good idea for people to see like, hey, this is what happens when you put in, the amount of time. And I think it's still phenomenal, everything that you're doing.
Yeah, and I don't mean to scoff at $100,000. That's a wheelbarrow full of money. It absolutely is. It's just, it's not, I'm not whatever. I'm not buying a yacht from CSS-Tricks, that's for sure. But I do have other things as well that are similar. There's CodePen 2, which is a bigger project. I mean, page views wise, it's triple CSS-Tricks.
So 21 million page views a month.
I think it's more like 15, 16, but that's without embeds, which embeds go on other people's site. That's kind of tracked differently, which is a similar number of them.
By the way, side note, everyone, before you talk about CodePen, one of our main developers was hired from CodePen. Actually, two of them came from CodePen. They're
is that right?
Really, really good. Yeah, they're so solid. One's from Singapore. The other one's from, I think it's Sweden. So yeah, really great site. So why don't you talk about CodePen? What is it exactly, and how does it help people?
It was born from not early, just CSS-Tricks in general. It has a lot of demos on it. It's like, let me talk about this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript thing, and I can put code blocks on there, and you can look at the code. But it's nothing compared to looking at the code and looking at that code running. What does it do? I want to see it. And a screenshot is boring, and it isn't proof that it's working. A screenshot's just a screenshot. And predating CodePen, there's tools like JS Fiddle, JS Bin, great tools that kind of invented this concept of I can write my code and be looking at the output of my code at the same time, right in my web browser. And it was awesome. And I was just about to be like, you know what? I'm going to bite the bullet here. I'm going to move every single demo from CSS-Tricks onto these platforms because they're just better. This is the way that you should be looking at code. But before I did it, I kind of have this, I don't know, like I want a little more control about that. Like what if the service were to shut down? What if I want to show display ads on my demos for some reason? What if I want to brand my demos a little bit? Because that seems like something I might want to do. I want more control. So like the very early CodePen was buddies of mine. Do you want to help me with like a weekend project kind of thing to build kind of a demo tool along the lines of these other apps? And we did it, and it just was so much fun, and we knew that we wanted to work together, and we had a million ideas for it. So pretty quick, we just blew it up, and we're like, nah, let's just make this a whole thing. Let's go big here. Let's make it, let's let people have accounts. Let's make it more like a social media tool. Let's make sure the front page of it is showcasing the community, and it grew up pretty quickly. But yeah, the root of it was what a good way to look at code.
Wow. Okay. And then so I'm looking at your pricing plans over here. You have $9 a month, $30 a month, $40 a month. What's like the most popular one?
It's funny that it's like changing like this weekend. That's been there forever, and for the first time ever, we have a new payment structure rolling out. But it'll be pretty similar. It was mostly a back end rewrite. Certainly, the lowest plan is the most, because people you get so much for that low plan that the Super Pro plan, it is useful for some people, but to be perfectly honest, it's kind of a, that old like psychological trick where, put an expensive plan there and it makes the one next lower sound a lot better.
At Treehouse, we had the gold and the silver, right? And 66% of people would do the silver and 33% would do the gold, and it's
That's
like that for most
for
companies.
Gold, though.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, to be perfectly honest, when I was there, there wasn't that much more value added with the gold, but people just like to get the gold sometimes. It's a psychological thing, like you said.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're nowhere near 33%. That would be rad. But it would be almost like a Treehouse if you made like a platinum plan in which you got very little else, but it was like 3 times as expensive or something, like knowing that absolutely nobody is going to pick that. But I don't know if that works. I don't have any data on that kind of thing. But there's going to be one more plan shoved in here soon. Team is sort of kind of going to be broken off into its own kind of thing because Team is very valuable to us. They're higher priced plans and they provide a lot of value, and they're going to be providing a lot of more value soon, and that's big. We want to sell those more. There's probably a lot of people that listen to this that have an app that's so expensive that it kind of makes sense to have a sales team, really, or like if you can sell a lot of accounts. But it's always been tricky for us because we have so many people that are on a $9 plan. It doesn't make sense to have a salesperson out there on the beat selling a $9 plan.
No, it totally makes sense. The numbers just don't work. So how many paying users do you have right now for CodePen?
I don't know that I can share that exactly, but we have like 1 million-ish users, period, that have signed up. And we have like pretty, I would say, industry standard conversion rate on that.
Great. And so for CodePen, it's not just you running the show, right? You got multiple partners?
3 co-founders, yeah, and there's 8 total of us who work on the app. We took funding 1 year ago, a little more than a year ago. We took $1 million for 10% of it. And so we used that money to hire all these people and to build some big new stuff. So it's funny now, we just had like a meeting planning 2017 thing where we're like, we're pretty close to profitability and not there yet. We haven't released a ton after hiring these employees. We've released features, but we kind of hired them to build this huge big thing that's not even out yet, and we're just very much looking forward to it going out so we can see what it does to revenue.
Got it. And so most of your team's remote for this too, right? Or everyone?
All of them, yeah. No 2 people in the same state even at the moment. And we have Rachel Smith, who works for us, is in the process of moving back to Australia, so we'll have some international stuff going on.
Awesome. So awesome, man. And okay, so you got 2 things. You got 7 million page views, you got 16 million page views, you got 1 million users. So now let's talk about the podcast. What is the podcast? What was the impetus for it?
That's certainly the smallest project I work on. Not to minimize or anything. It's been fun. Where I think we recorded 253 today, just like an hour before this call. So that's, every week, that's 5 years of podcasting. Mostly it's just me and my buddy Dave, and it's super casual. We chat. The meat and potatoes of the show is question and answer as opposed to interview. We kind of thought at the time, there's plenty of interview kind of stuff. Let's do it more like car talk on NPR where people write in about their broken Volvo or whatever. This will be write in about your broken website, and we'll answer that question. And so we still do that, although we do have plenty of guests on the show as well. It's just anything that would make a good story about building websites, we go for. In fact, a couple of years ago, we had a crazy one where I had a hacker really mess with my life, and I even took that as an opportunity I invited the hacker onto the show anonymously to have an interview. So
how'd that go?
A pretty big show for us. It was good. I think it in a sense, it doesn't make me think that he wasn't a bastard, because he is a bastard, and I still think that. But I think we saw the humanity in each other a little bit, and it got him to back off, which is huge.
Wow. So I mean, without going too much into detail, I'm a little curious. Why did he decide to hack you, and what did he do exactly? I was actually kind of a random target, because even at the time, well, it was only a few years ago, so I guess CSS-Tricks was still a pretty big name site-ish, and I think he, through my host, figured out that he essentially did social engineering. Called up the host on the phone, pretended it was me, pretended to be mad about something, and they gave him access that they shouldn't have given, and have since had to kind of revise their phone, what they allow on the phone kind of thing.
And then he got in, and all he wanted to do, I think, was to get low-level server access. I can hardly remember it. I have to go back and listen to the show. But he just wanted to mess with them, I said, and get server access because he was really into Bitcoin, So I think he wanted to install like Bitcoin mining stuff on it, and who knows what. I think he just got a kick out of what the world would allow him to do, kind of thing.
Wow, that's crazy. And so, how many listeners do you have on the podcast right now per month?
That's another good question too. Probably in the tens of thousands. Like medium size for a podcast.
You just know how to build communities, and the thing is, going back to, I don't think when I'm doing this podcast, there's no specific hack. You just have to add a lot of value and be consistent over time because. When I look at this podcast,
the second one. I mean, value is important too, but yeah, consistency. Just be, even if it's not. I mean, if you got to take a break, but don't do 12 episodes and give up, or don't write on your blog 3 times a year, and just got to keep chugging away. And I see so many abandoned ideas that are like. You didn't fail. You just gave up too soon.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not like you have to be really smart or anything. Because I look at this podcast. After year one, I was spending 6 hours per interview, and did it for a whole year. And after year one, I was getting 9 downloads a day. And you just keep going. Year 2, 54 downloads a day, right? And then year 3, it's like, oh, okay, we got up to 15,000 a day. That's great, but it just takes time.
That's really great.
That's the thing with it. So I mean, you clearly know how to build communities. We should just call you the master of communities. So I'm looking at this. I'm trying to extrapolate the numbers a little bit. So basically, you're saying you're doing 1 to 2 blog posts a day on CSS-Tricks, right? So if you average it out, maybe it's around 45-ish blog posts per month. Would you say you did that consistently for 10 years, or how many years was that over?
Yeah, well, I can just look right now. We have 2,725 posts on CSS-Tricks right now. So. What is that? It's
27 blog posts a month?
Yeah, so it's more like 1 a day. It's averaging out to over all the time, it sounds like. It doesn't count screencasts, it doesn't count almanac, it doesn't count snippets. So there's all these, it's when you add all those in, I think we're a little up over
4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah, well, there's 1,400 pages just alone. So I don't know, whatever. I like how into the numbers you are. It's fun for me too.
So I mean, we'll share all these numbers in the show notes. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. How old are you right now?
36.
36. Okay, what's one piece of advice you give to your 25-year-old self?
25-year-old self? Wow, what was I doing when I was 25? I think I lived in Portland, Oregon. I think I just moved there for the first time leaving home. I went to college and stuff, but I'd never left. I grew up in Wisconsin. God, what have I screwed up then? It probably wouldn't even be like tech or businessy. It'd probably be like, you should go for a run a little more often, buddy. You should. Why don't you get the bike out? Why don't you make a healthy meal tonight?
What's one new tool you added in the last year that's added a lot of value?
We use Zoom, which was I don't know that it's new, but it's kind of new to me. We do, because you need to talk to people face to face on a remote team, we'd be like, let's do Google Hangouts for everything. And then Slack had a thing that you can kind of use. And then we used, oh God, what's the other popular one? I don't even know, but yeah, we never used that one, but certainly Skype was in there too, because you can do video on it, and never had really good luck with what microphone is on? Oh, I can't hear you. The best luck we've ever had is with Zoom. So switching to Zoom was good. Not a sponsor or anything, but yeah, they do a good job with that. We also switched to GitLab. Anyway, tell me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember I'm looking at your Twitter profile right now, and it just struck me. You talked about the whole thing about walking more, running more. You lost a lot of weight.
Well, it goes up and down, so don't get too excited. But no, I did in the last few years.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. You were saying?
Yeah, GitLab was a big change for us. It's kind of like a GitHub competitor, I guess, but it's like open source or whatever, like GitHub isn't. And that was a big new tool for us because there's a good amount of features in it for project. It not only is your code source, your version control system, but it has a really robust issue board thing, and it does the Kanban board thing, and it can kind of run your deployment and stuff through its pipelines feature and stuff. It kind of has rolled together a bunch of different tools for us, and that was a big new tool for us. It's a big change, switching full on GitLab.
Awesome. Okay, what's one must-read book you'd recommend to everyone?
Well, we talked about community a bunch, and I've always really liked. It's kind of an old book. It's funny if you pick it up and read it and flip through it, you'll see a bunch of screenshots in it that are like laughably old websites. But it's called Design for Community by Derek Powazak, and there's so many ideas about it on how to run an online community and how to think about it.
Love it. Okay, we'll drop that in the show notes. So, Chris, this has been awesome. What's the best way for people to find you online?
Chris Coyier at gmail.com is my email address. Chris Coyier on Twitter and GitHub and CodePen and Dribble and all this stuff. Happy to hear from anybody.
Cool. And everyone, make sure that you check out CodePen. I don't know how to use the actual product, but I use the job board and it works out for me. So it might work out for you. Thanks so much for doing this, Chris.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Growth Everywhere. If you loved what you heard, be sure to head back to growtheverywhere.com for today's show notes and a ton of additional resources. But before you go, hit the subscribe button to avoid missing out on next week's value-packed interview. Enjoy the rest of your week, and remember to take action and continue growing.